Hello, and welcome everyone to the Fiber Optic Sensing Association webinar series. The usual webinar series would have a member company presenting on a specific topic. But we're celebrating our 5th anniversary this month. And as a 5-year anniversary, we figured we'd get some of the former chairmen and people involved in the organization together to talk about where the organization is, where it came from, and how do how we're going to proceed going forward. So this will just be a conversation amongst us, and you're welcome to submit questions in the chat box there, and we'll answer those. My name is Dave Cunningham. I'm going to MC the panel, and we'll start by introductions, and we'll go around and start with Stan Fendley. If you want to introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about your background.
Thanks, Dave. Hi, everybody. My name is Stan Fendley. I work for Corning in Washington, D.C., and the company's government affairs operations. I worked for Corning for 22 years. Before that, I was a U.S. Senate staffer for several years, and then earlier in my career, I worked at a law firm in Washington, D.C.
All right. Thanks, Stan. Mike Hines.
Yeah, thanks, Stan. Thanks, Dave. Mike Hines here with OFS. I work out of the Avon, Connecticut facility. We're the specialty products division, part of OFS, doing optical fiber and cables. My area of responsibility is really for sensing products, and I've been in the business for about 30 years now, and with FOSA since its inception. Looking forward to today's chat.
All right, and JJ.
Hi there, I'm JJ Williams with OptaSense, part of Luna, and OptaSense is a manufacturer of distributed fiber optic sensing systems. I've been with the company since inception in 2007 and moved from the UK to the US and opened up our Houston office in 2011, and I've been here since then, and was chairman of FOSA in 2019.
Thank you, JJ. Now, Paul.
My name is Paul Dickinson. I'm the Director of Technology Partnerships at Dura-Line, and I'm also currently the Vice Chair of the Board for FOSA this year. Dura-Line is one of our family companies within Orbia and is a leading global provider of pathway solutions in the telecom market. In fact, we celebrated our 50-year anniversary last year. Our underground, aerial, and in-building conduits provide not only protection, but the flexible and scalable ability to meet unpredictable and always increasing data needs. So we're also proud to be a founding member of FOSA, and we're constantly seeking new ways, you'll hear today, to bring value-added solutions to our customers.
Thank you, Paul. And Mark.
So I'm Mark Uncapher. I'm Executive Director of FOSA. In the 90s, I worked on Capitol Hill. I'm a communications lawyer by training, and so the committee I was on information technology policy. After that, I worked for trade associations, was Senior Vice President Counsel at Information Technology Association of America, ITAA, that became Tech America. And from there, I went to work at TIA, Telecommunications Industry Association. And I'm very pleased when Stan reached out to me in the early days of FOSA, but we'll talk about that later.
Okay, and my name is Dave Cunningham. I'm the Vice President of Marketing with Network Integrity Systems. I have about 30 years of experience in the industry, and a lot of that was with Corning Incorporated, and was in both different IT roles, deploying inside and outside plant fiber, and then in the marketing and business development roles where I had a lot of involvement in industry organizations like this. I've been involved with TIA, with the fiber optic LAN section, with the Hotel Technology Next Generation Group, founding director or founding board chairman for the Association for Passive Optical LAN. So what I wanted to do with those introductions is show you the breadth of industry experience that is involved in this organization. We've got a lot of history, a lot of knowledgeable people in the organization, and it's been great getting to know these folks and to be your board chairman for this year. So thank you everyone for the introductions, and let's go back, Stan, and talk a little bit about the founding of the organization, what the ideas were that sparked it, and kind of what the startup thought processes were for the founding members.
Good. Yeah, thanks for that. Yeah, let me give you that background from my perspective. Again, I'm a lobbyist, right? Public policy is my focus. In terms of optical fiber, in the 20 odd years I've been with Corning, my main focus has been broadband policy, trying to get fiber deployed to unserved areas of the country. The way that I became involved in fiber optic sensing was that a few years ago, I was contacted by a Corning executive, a woman named Michelle Ingarto, who called to complain that federal pipeline regulations were inhibiting the deployment of fiber optic sensing for leak detection purposes. And so I had to ask her, Michelle, what is fiber optic sensing? I really had no idea. And so she gave me a tutorial, showed me some videos. I was wowed. I mean, it really is, you know, an amazing technology. So I went to work on how we, as Corning at that time, this was before creation of FOSA, how we would weigh in with the federal pipeline agency called FEMSA. And we've filed formal comments in a rulemaking that was occurring at the time, and on this topic of changing the regs to allow for fiber optic sensing to be used for leak detection purposes, right? And you know, to paraphrase FEMSA's response, it was like, "What in the world are you talking about? What fiber optic? What?" They had no idea, right? So it became clear to me real quickly we had a big educational job ahead of us. I mean, to get a federal regulations changed at all is a big job, but to persuade an agency to facilitate the use of a technology that the agency knows nothing about, that's a real chore. You know, it takes a lot of time, it takes a lot of meetings with many people. It's kind of daunting. About that time, I was introduced to J.J. Williams from OptaSense, and we met at a pipeline safety conference in New Orleans and talked about the same issue. I think JJ had the same thoughts I had about, you know, the difficulty of making progress with FEMSA on this issue, and we kind of agreed that we needed help. We really needed a trade association dedicated to fiber optic sensing. So we both started making some calls, doing some outreach to folks in the sector to see if there would be interest, and pretty soon there were a number of companies interested. I think a lot of people honestly have been doing the same thing as we. They've been working individually as companies on public policy and industry education and so on. So coming together as a group was, I think, just kind of a natural progression of the industry into of the individual companies into a true industry. So we, you know, quickly had like 10 or 15 companies interested, and we were very fortunate to get a management team in place very quickly. We talked to Mark and talked him into coming on board as executive director, so we had an experienced trade association guy to run the organization. Someone said, "You got to talk to this woman, Joy Maloney, who's amazing." We talked to Joy, and we were able to get her to come on board, and she is amazing. And then a little later, we brought Judy Hafner on as the association lobbyist, and she is amazing. So we came together really quickly and really well. Very importantly, I must say, we had the support of the Fiber Broadband Association. Obviously, a lot of synergies between broadband and sensing. So we affiliated with Fiber Broadband Association, and that was very helpful. Things like back office support, webinar support, general promotion. They've been terrific. I think the synergies there, you know, Paul Dickinson's actually working on that to grow that synergy between the two groups, and I think that's very important, and it will grow. And so I think FOSA has been great. I think it will continue to grow. I think fiber optic sensing is going to continue to grow. The technology is just so amazing and can play such a positive role in so many verticals. I think the demand is for the technology and the organization is just going to continue to grow. And let me say, for me, the most important thing about the FOSA experience has been that it's been impactful right away. certainly has in terms of public policy, which again is my focus. You know, FOSA really moved the needle very quickly in a number of ways. I know JJ is going to talk about that topic, so I won't go into depth there, but I'll just say that this organization has been able to impact U.S. public policy as quickly as any new organization I've ever seen. So all in all, just to say that, you know, it's a little bit of background. For me, it's been very gratifying to work with FOSA. I think we created something special with this organization, something that really makes a positive difference in the real world and benefits our members. And, you know, we all have to look out for the bottom line. So I think FOSA helps our bottom line. So it's been a great experience. Something I think we should all be pleased with. Certainly, I'm very pleased with it. I'll stop there.
Thank you, Stan. And yeah, I appreciate all of your efforts early on, along with the the rest of the guys here who've been in there since the beginning. And as somebody who hasn't been there since the beginning, when joining the organization, I found that it was just a professionally run, top tier organization of its type. Having been involved with a lot of different organizations over time, you can kind of feel when the organizations are doing the right things. And so I appreciate early leadership on that. And Mike, speaking of the early years, let's talk about some of the challenges and different impacts that FOSA had in those early years as it was starting up as a brand new organization.
Yeah, happy to comment on that. Kind of a funny story. I want to say October, November of 2016, I got a call from my OFS colleague, John George, who's very involved in the Fiber Broadband Association. And he connected me with Stan Fendley to have a discussion around this notion of a trade association for fiber optic sensing. Shortly thereafter, I got a call from a cowboy from Houston, Texas, with a funny British accent named JJ Williams, who's here with us today. And between the three of us, we just kind of batted the idea around, and I'm pleased to say that we found some money to jump in by avoiding two trade advertisements that year to fund our first year of membership in FOSA, and probably the best money we've ever spent. I go from essentially trying to go it alone in the market to establish distributed fiber optic sensing channels and customer base and applications to really having daily conversations with all the members of FOSA, and it's been tremendously helpful. So going back to the early days, after forming the trade association and having our first few meetings, kind of getting things in place, we quickly moved to sort of setting a charter for the group. And one of the primary sort of challenges for all the members was to educate the various markets and the various influencers on Capitol Hill. These are Congress people and regulators about the sort of the technologies of distributed fiber optic sensing, where they applied and how they benefited. And it was relatively easy to come up with these themes. And then we started to go out and do outreach with them very, very quickly. So Stan mentioned before that the trade association of FOSA was very impactful, and I can't agree more. It had an immediate impact. The technology itself, as most members will attest, is fantastic, but explaining it and getting the right value proposition in front of the right customer base was a challenge that the industry faced. So we set to the task of developing things like technology primers. These are one-page documents freely available, and really kind of aligned with the various markets that we're going after, and began to put those to use. We got into things like installation guidelines, again, freely available. And then some of the other things that I think were very helpful were the webinar series and the monthly newsletters. A lot of work went into that. Again, going back to Mark Uncapher and Joy Maloney, a lot of backroom efforts to make those things run as smoothly as possible. But yeah, from my recollection, that's really what entailed in the early days of FOSA, and we haven't really looked back since.
Yeah, and JJ, from being in the public policy committee and being the chair of that committee, let's talk a little bit about the public policy impact and kind of where we're at and what the benefits for the members in the public policy area have been, especially recently as our name and the technology becomes more and more aware to public policy officials?
Sure, yeah. So as Stan said, in the early days, it was really about, awareness and education. People hadn't heard of the technology, the benefits in different markets. So I used to tack on a day to each of my trips to DC to see customers to just do Hill meetings with Stan, and I know other FOSA members have done as well. And you just crank out 5 to 10 meetings in a day, just going around the Hill with an iPad, showing people videos of the technology, explaining the different applications. And we must have done, 100, 200 meetings in a few years, just of awareness and education. And that's really with the committees on the Hill in the House and on the Senate, who kind of are relevant to our technology. So that might be, transportation and infrastructure. It might be homeland security, and we get in touch with the offices where our members, the districts where our members are as well, because they want to help their constituents. So just a lot of awareness and education. You also have to kind of focus on the investment areas of particular administrations. So in the previous administration, it was border security, for example. So we did a lot of education about fiber optic sensing for border security, and that was appropriated and funded as a program called Linear Ground Detection Systems. And I know that some of our members were successful in bidding for that work, so that's a good success. In this administration, it's infrastructure. We're in a cycle of infrastructure investment, so we've been very focused on that. Judy Hafner's done an incredible job of tracking all of the different bills and provisions that are relevant to our technology. It was less about kind of outreach and trying to influence that they invested in technology, because there was just so much investment happening. It was more about tracking and identifying what's of interest to our membership. And we now have a infrastructure funding opportunities tracker that Judy regularly shares with our membership. So that's really helpful for those member organizations or their partners to go and pursue those opportunities with the states and the other government agencies that are eligible for that funding. So that's dominating public policy at the moment, and I think it's going to for the next couple of years. Is tracking those opportunities within infrastructure. But I think in the future, we might get into kind of a third phase of public policy where our technology is so mature and is used so prevalently in certain applications that it becomes kind of regulated or mandated, and our association will be helpful to the agencies and the regulators and other industry associations involved in that regulation. So, for example, where there's like a massive safety impact, like a pipeline explosion or electric grid where there's single points of failure, our technology could get mandated eventually. So I think that'll be an interesting kind of future phase of public policy, and where our association can be really influential.
Yeah, and I agree, and I think we don't get to those phases without some kind of industry presence, as opposed to individuals, handling this on their own. So again, the value of an industry organization to influence those public policy decisions and mandates.
A unified voice, unified terminology, it all helps.
Right. So, Paul, I'm going to come to you with a question, because on the panel we've got JJ and myself working for electronics manufacturers of sensing equipment. We've got Stan and Mike who work for the cablers and the fiber guys. And so, you working for a different kind of company. Why don't you talk a little bit about that and what the value you see both in the industry and sensing in general as kind of a non-traditional member?
Sure, absolutely. JJ said in a word, JJ Williams said in a word just now, and it's all about infrastructure. As this organization grows, we're going to see increasing diversity of our membership. That's a great question. So distributed sensing is obviously very technology driven, and therefore a big part of our membership, as you said, Dave, is comprised of companies that make the hardware, develop and deliver the software, and get it all to work in a seamless manner. But just like in the fiber optic industry, fiber broadband in general, it takes a village to actually make it all work. We not only need the hardware and the software and the fiber cables, we draw the interest and membership of other players that provide all the key components that complete or enable the system to work. So I'm talking about the folks that are instrumental in deployment and installation and research, installation technology companies in our membership like Ditch Witch, for example, and leading research universities like Berkeley. So we do have many of the global leading providers of fiber optic cable in our membership, but also my company, Dura-Line, who's the leading provider of high density polyethylene that is a big part of most installations. So, people would scratch their heads, why are we members? Well, we protect and provide the pathways for fiber expansion, but as a benefit to Dura-Line specifically, we, along with FOSA, have made it a point to bring awareness to both commercial industry and also the public policy folks in Washington that JJ mentioned about the value of a concept called dig once, which is digging only once when infrastructure is built every day, so that we reduce future labor costs when you expand bandwidth. And here's another important point. This is mind-boggling to me. While new infrastructure is being built every day, there's already a sum total of about 600 million kilometers of fiber already installed in the world. So let that sink in for a second. That's over 800 trips from the Earth to the moon in fiber. And Dura-Line itself has provided about 5 million kilometers of conduit in our 50-year history. So with fiber optic sensing, a significant portion of that fiber that's already installed might be able to deliver another use beyond telecom and data provision. And now that should be very interesting to many different types of companies who could effectively leverage this. So Dura-Line, along with other members of FOSA, who do not build or design hardware or software, we're all about bringing added value to our current and future customers, as we all are, right? So years back, we actually demonstrated in one of our FOSA webinars just how well this technology, acoustic sensing, works when fiber cable is in a conduit, which is where it usually is in the world, and how that acoustic sensitivity is negligibly impacted. So as member company, Dura-Line and other members, we participate and we organize and we deliver these webinars to create awareness in the industry. So in short, FOSA membership right now is going to grow in diversity, and it requires all those in the value chain who deliver effective, reliable, and total solutions. And as we grow in awareness, and we'll talk about that probably in a few minutes, in new emerging vertical markets, we fully expect our membership is going to continue to grow, not only in size, but also in diversification to even the end users of the technology. So, we're only in the beginning stages here, and it's just going to expand and grow to, like any fiber organization, all the players.
Yeah. Thank you, Paul. That's great. And Mark, as a non-industry player, but being involved in TIA and other large organizations like that, and then being here from the beginning, let's talk about the growth process and the growing up from this startup organization to where we are today, and what that process has been like for you as an executive director.
Sure. Sometimes when folks get into associations, sort of the initial impact is, do I really want to be sitting across the table from my competitor? What are they going to learn? What am I going to lose as a result of that? And so that's initially sometimes a bit of a hurdle for folks to get their heads around. And that said, I go back to, I guess, beginning with Stan referenced at the very beginning. I describe it as the aha moment. And that's the point when you sit there with the iPad and you show how the technology works, and you see the guy walking, and you see the waterfall, and you see the alert go off, and you explain how the technology. And in the last 5 years, I've seen literally scores of people have that aha moment. First, it's much more effective to be able to have a group of competitors come in and jointly say, you know what, we've got this mature technology that's available. This is what it can do. You've got, this isn't one company selling potentially vaporware. This is a whole infrastructure, a whole set of groups, different components of what they do, but that collectively can deliver this technology. Having that message delivered jointly is so much more effective than with one particular company. So as we talked about from the very beginning, I think in May of 5 years ago, we began delivering those aha moments on Capitol Hill. Going forward, our challenge isn't just in policy, and JJ, as JJ mentioned, we got a lot of work to do there, but it's now to go look at some of those vertical industries, sectors that we'd like to penetrate, to have more engagement with. And to do that again, to have that, we're a broad industry, lots of choices, lots of competitors, lots of ways to enable that. Here's the aha moment that you can have in your industry, in your segment, where the technology can deliver real value. And that's what an association can do far more effectively than a company by themselves.
Yeah, I completely agree with that. So I do want to go around and kind of talk about how FOSA has benefited your company. So Stan, again, I think you already talked a little bit about it, but let's talk about some of the specific FOSA membership benefits that Corning receives, as being a member and a participant in the organization.
Yeah, I think for Corning and probably many others in our space, fiber optic sensing adds it's an adjacent technology, right? We've spent 50 years now selling optical fiber, and it's all been for telecom, but now along comes this it's not a new technology, but it's not widely known technology that can use, as Paul was talking about, that existing asset that's out there in a new way, and so that creates additional interest in our baseline product. To me, I talk to guys in the telecom business a lot. I tell our telco compatriots, think of all that optical fiber that you've got in the ground or on poles out there. If you can use that to understand what's going on in the world around it, right? You can tell with your buried assets. You can tell what the traffic patterns are above that ground. You can tell what's going on with the weather. You can tell when there are accidents. With your overhead cable, you can tell when there are problems with the weather, when aerial assets are becoming iced over, and you can tell when applying that to the grid. You can tell when there are hot spots, and there are all kinds of so many uses for the technology that it just creates additional opportunities for a company like Corning and others in our space. So it's absolutely a no-brainer for us to help develop further use of fiber optic sensors.
Okay, and Mike, how about you?
Yeah, it's kind of building on what Stan says. 50 years of intense effort on getting a telecom network built out. That provides a great sort of jumping off point. In my role with OFS, I'm also looking at what is the future there? What are the problems, the technical problems that still remain to be solved? And there are just many, many of them. So through the networking sort of capabilities within FOSA, you start to really understand where are the customers finding value in these technologies, and maybe where do they have needs that we can fill. So it's a really helpful sort of forum to discuss the state of the art. and that's been very helpful to us. Other things that come to mind, I think of the various FOSA committees that are very active. So we talked about public policy. As a member, you can jump in and volunteer to participate there. If you're interested in technology, we've got a very active technology committee. It's responsible for generating a lot of the content that we ultimately distribute as part of the education process. And we're always looking for members to jump in, volunteer there. And it's a great way for your company to make sure that its message is heard along with the other members. It's a great way to make sure that it's being publicized by the trade association. So just examples like that. We have a Smart Cities Committee, kind of a new committee that we're forming to try to really get better handle on what a smart city might be in the future and how we can sort of get our fair share out of that. Likewise, we have a new technology evangelism committee, which is really tasked with taking content, whether it's from a public policy standpoint or from technology committee standpoint, and finding audiences that might be interested in hearing that. So lots of great ways to get involved. The networking is fantastic. JJ mentioned the members only database that we have on federal funding opportunities. These are all tools that are essentially available to the members. And then there's a suite of tools that are freely available to everyone. I mentioned before the technology primers. We've got 5 or 6 of those that are right on the website. Installation guidelines for anybody that's interested in understanding how do you install one of these systems, freely available. I think the count on webinars, these are technology seminars, we're up to about 50 of them over the last 5 years. And in terms of the monthly newsletter, that's chock full of great information for technologists and marketers interested in the DFOS space. And we've got about 50 of those that are freely available. So just lots of tools that are generated through the effort of FOSA and its membership. And I think those are really what I take away as kind of the best assets and the best benefits for participating in FOSA.
Dave, could I just underscore a little one of the things that Mike just said, which was the webinars. We have on our YouTube channel, we do these webinars essentially on a monthly basis, and we have a good turnout for individual ones. But the response that we've gotten to those webinars when they're on the YouTube page, it's in the tens of thousands of views. And it's remarkable when you think about, frankly, a fairly specialized technology, just how much traction we've been able to get. Frankly, people obviously interested in finding a little bit more about the technology, different use cases, different ways it's gotten used. I'm not sure any of us would have anticipated 5 years ago that webinar series would have quite as much impact as it does, but it clearly is reaching a lot of people.
Yeah, that's a great point, and the content is rich, and it holds up well too, right? You can watch content that's maybe a year or two old, and it's still very relevant, very effective. JJ, what about your membership benefits?
I think there's been soft benefits. Just the kind of market intelligence that you get from being involved. You kind of just the pulse of the industry. You kind of hear what's going on, and to Mike's point, where customers are seeing value and things like that. Soft benefits in terms of just networking. I think it's been good for a lot of OptaSense folks to be involved in the committees. It's been a good learning experience for them. Stan actually teaches at the George Washington University, so my involvement in the public policy committee meant that I was getting a lot of great coaching from him going around Capitol Hill. So that was pretty awesome. And then there's kind of hard benefits, of real opportunities that you hear about, or that we get passed to us through our outreach and through our kind of market analysis. For example, Judy's analysis of government funding opportunities that are relevant to our technology. So that's kind of this, the hard. We've had opportunities, right, and projects that we've closed through things that we've heard or been introduced to through FOSA. So I think that's pretty cool.
Okay, and Paul, very quickly on your benefits.
Yeah, so I think Stan said it before. It's the realization that there's multi-use capabilities out there for our vast infrastructure that's already in place and growing. So FOSA, in working with Dura-Line, we provided even further validation of just the general importance of conduit and fiber optic cable in the future in terms of future proofing. We're not only providing more and more data and broadcast, we're providing other benefits. So, Dura-Line's always looking at new technologies like micro conduits and micro cables, and we validated they work well with sensing technologies. And that's where the industry is going. So everything's getting smaller and smaller, and the bandwidth's growing, and it's getting more data intense. So now we can confidently tell our customers that there's further value to be realized when you expend money to build this expensive infrastructure beyond datacom and telecom. And that not only can we provide right-of-way protection with sensing of this valuable infrastructure, we can do traffic monitoring, we can provide security, and we can provide for end users monetization that's really only limited, in my opinion, by your creativity and vision. So that's where the future is going to go. I mean, people are going to take this technology and just find really creative ways to use it.
Right. And then you guys were all in here from the very early days. As a more recent member, we're going on our third, maybe fourth year. I'm not exactly sure, but we were, as a sensing company who's been doing optical sensing for almost 2 decades with some very specialized applications in the government space, to expand our portfolio and have an industry that we can look to and join and be a member of that helps us understand the dynamics and the different variables that come into play and actually learn about the technology and what the possibilities are as we were, moving into a distributed acoustic sensing space. It was very helpful to have an organization to be part of and then on the soft benefits side, like JJ was talking to, gives some of us who like to serve the industry and be a part of things like this a place to be in a way to help grow an entire industry and lift all the boats. So it's really a chance. There's a lot of opportunity in the committees, on the board. There's a lot of ways you can help serve the organization and really make a difference, both in your personally, for your satisfaction, your career, and those kind of things, to the entire industry and the respect and the way we've established a name for this technology throughout not just Capitol Hill but the broader industry as well. So, Mark, I did want to ask you very quickly on the as we emerge from this COVID period, what do you see for us as far as more in-person meetings and those kind of things that we kind of had to put on hold and getting back together as a group more often, other things like that? What do you see happening?
Coming back to that notion that part of what we seek is the aha moment where somebody sees how the technology works and they begin to think about what the applications are that might make sense for them. As meetings are taking place, as industry groups are out there, we have a great opportunity to focus on specific vertical industries. So obviously pipeline is huge in this space, but now we have a lot of smart cities applications, traffic monitoring, and electric grid. There's a lot of money going into that right now. We're in the opportunity as an association to reach out to particularly most efficiently, the associations, the places, the trade shows, the conferences where people in these individual sectors meet, to give them that, again, Stan, I come back to you because you're the first one I watched do it, that aha moment where they watch the 30 seconds to 45 seconds on an iPad or frankly on a PowerPoint screen and see, wait a second, this stuff could be really effective. I ran into just last week and talked to some folks, applications for parking. I learned how expensive it is to have a sensor that works in a parking lot and what have you, and started doing the calculation, and it goes, wait a second, this is a great opportunity for fiber optic sensing, and I'm sharing some of that information. there are lots of applications like that. And I think that's great for those vertical industries, but it's also great for members and potential members to come to the table to kind of see where those opportunities could be. Finally, let me emphasize, it's so much more effective for an association to be delivering this message than an individual company, because that's when you're seeing, no, it isn't just one guy or one company that's maybe doing something that is more theoretical than real. You're able to see, look, there's a broad base of companies that are prepared to do that and prepared to provide those kinds of solutions.
And just to follow on that, to understand that there are commercial off-the-shelf solutions available,
Yes.
both in commercial and the government space, as opposed to research projects, right? That could pop up and those kind of things. And we don't want, we're beyond the research stage. We're approaching mainstream with this technology, and that's what I want to see, is that commercial adoption and the further interaction with the other organizations that get together in the, all the different spaces that you mentioned, rail and all of that, right? And I think as we can ramp that back up and speak in those events and those kind of things, again, great opportunity for members to give you a chance to stand up in front and share your passion for the technology, for the industry, represent FOSA in those spaces. So that's a great point, Mark, about all those new ramping back up of the events where we can go make an impact.
Yeah,
I think for anybody who hasn't been to a FOSA meeting, you should go. If you're interested in this technology and this industry, there is so much going on at our meetings. There's a lot of industry collaboration, obviously, in the programs, and then there are side deals going on all the time. You walk around the meetings, you'll see some guys huddled together, and you say, "Oh, they're doing a deal right now," right? And it's a very dynamic thing. It's a lot of energy, a lot of fun. I'm really looking forward to starting the personal meetings, those in-person meetings again, because there's a lot going on at those.
Dan, you're right. I mean, one of the things I increasingly find out, companies that aren't members, they're following us on LinkedIn or they're participating on our webinars and what have you. And you tell them, look, why don't you just come to one meeting? Just one of the in-person meetings. I frankly think, Dave, that's how your company became involved, is invited them.
Yes.
Just try, just participate one time and see if you see some value there. And as we did with Dave's company, we picked up quite a few members from folks who've seen that value.
Yes, so we're running out of time, but JJ, I wanted to get a little bit of comment from you on what the future that's happening. There are some great things happening, not just with the electronics that do the sensing and the cabling that can sense, but the software and some of the analyzation and even artificial intelligence that's coming to play in this space.
Yeah, absolutely. Just following on from what others were saying, I think the timing for this technology is good. There's aging infrastructure, from the 50s and 60s with that economic boom, and obviously there's infrastructure spending that we can target. So good timing from that perspective, and we have a great play, in that space. And I think climate change as well. There's more event-based, issues with infrastructure and just threats to the public in general. So whether it's wildfires or hurricanes or winter storms affecting the grid, we can support all of those assets. And then, from the technology standpoint, we're seeing, the last few years, it's less about, the instrumentation. It's building more of the applications, the software to deliver operators answers rather than just data. And I think, that's going to be, more and more crucial over time, that, we put simple to use, useful information into the hands of, these kind of infrastructure operators. So there's been a huge amount of development across the board in those areas. on the software, application development side, which I think is very exciting. There's also great collaboration through FOSA and beyond, of course, with the cable and conduit manufacturers to build a better system overall, so that you can, choose particular types of glass or cable or conduit to give you better answers. So that's been a really helpful collaboration. So from a timing perspective and just from the maturity of the technology, I think we're in a very exciting growth space, and the needs for our technology are only going to get stronger.
Agreed. And Paul, along those lines, where those growth opportunities are, you volunteered to take on the task of surveying the membership a few years ago and find out what the priorities, what the interests were, what the, where things fall in a list of 10 different spaces. What would you put as a 10 and what would you put as a 1? So let's talk a little bit about that process, with the value that generated for membership, and then what we're going to do with that moving forward.
Yeah, actually, at the time I counted, I think it was well over a dozen spaces. But to add comment quickly what JJ said, we're in business to do what? To provide value add to our customers and to solve pain points. And so this technology is ripe for solving so many pain points in so many different verticals. So I'm a scientist by training. I looked at this and I said, oil and gas is fantastic, perimeter security is fantastic, border security. There has to be so much more we can do in so many other verticals. So you're right. We worked together as a team. I think it was latter part of 2020. We issued the report in 2021. It was our first very comprehensive survey where we probed the members who know best as to where the opportunities might be, where the technologies are, where are the emerging markets, and frankly, as our member organization always does, where we can best serve our customers and create awareness in the industry. So we wanted to use this information to help prioritize our FOSA efforts, develop initiatives to maximize our impact, and also best serve our currently growing, very diverse member base. So again, over a dozen of these things. It was a little overwhelming, and they overlap. But I won't bore you with the mechanics of the survey, but here are some of the takeaways. So with oil and gas leak detection, border and perimeter security, those are the bread and butter of this industry, and value proposition is extremely clear. The awareness and adoption of this technology has driven and supported, frankly, many of the companies that are involved, and they're going to continue to play a huge role going forward. But the industry and its growing membership is very interested in this adoption of technology in other areas. So long story short, and it is a long story, I'm not going to try to rank order. I think Mark mentioned a few of these a minute ago. The membership and we believe the market is there for much greater increase in critical asset protection and security, all modes of transportation, be it roads and rail. And then, very interestingly, because that's kind of where many of the guys and gals on this group started, telecom and smart cities. So we do these surveys every year, but out of this particular survey, we grew some new committees. We had a brand new committee come out of this. We call it the Smart Cities Committee. It's led by Giovanni Milioni of NEC right now. It's a very active part of our organization. And we see a tremendous growth opportunity, again, with utilizing the existing fiber infrastructure and new fiber infrastructure that's out there in the industry. And then the other big takeaway here, and I know we're short of time, so I'll stop after this, is it's all about awareness, right? So there's awareness in key industries like border security, oil and gas, but this other dozen markets just simply are not aware of what this technology can really do to solve the pain points. So we created another committee, and we call it the Technology Evangelism Committee, and that's led by John Beckman of Viavi, which basically has a couple mandates to enhance the awareness of the technology in the solution in these emerging markets, and also, and very importantly, because we all need to pay the bills and keep the lights on, we want to enable and facilitate our member companies' abilities to take advantage of government appropriations and other appropriations in infrastructure, like JJ was mentioning earlier, that are available now. So in a nutshell, Dave, we're always evaluating the market. We're looking at the opportunities, and we're listening to our membership annually to chart our strategy and direction.
It's great. Thank you, Paul. So we're out of time. I do want to get one question answered though from someone on the webinar. And Mark, maybe you can address this, asking if FOSA is complementary to the Seafoam initiative or competition. And I know we've had collaboration with Seafoam in some ways. So if you want to maybe address that and the way we work with other organizations similar to Seafoam.
That's a great question, and we are very collaborative, and I think it would underscore to what one of the things Paul just said is that we do not focus on a single vertical. We look at multiple vertical industries, and we're very sensitive to potential merging applications that are applications that could be emerging markets for our members. And I think that's a great space for the companies that are looking to broaden their portfolio of where they're offering services for to participate in that process. And that differentiates us from more sectoral specific associations.
Right. Okay. So, and we are out of time. I appreciate all of you for supporting this call, this webinar. I think it's been informative for our members and for prospective members who may be watching. So we'll close it there, but thank you for attending the webinar. For those of you who are interested in a Fiber Optic Sensing Association potential membership, or you want to find out who is a member on there, you can go to the website fiberopticsensing.org and see all the membership and what the opportunities are. And so thank you everyone again for participating in the call, and for those watching, I hope you have a great rest of your day. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Everybody.